Welcome back to Comics with Drew. This is Drew, and this is my video about what can Western comics learn from manga. This is a response video, sort of, to the Comics by Perch video, where Perch was talking about things that, Western comics might be able to learn from manga because manga is just cleaning their clock when it comes to sales. Now, I've never read manga before. As you can see, I got My Hero Academia Volume 1 here. This is my first one that I've ever read. In fact, I picked it up last week, and I tweeted the pictures of this book as well as One Punch Man Volume 1. And I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and take a look at this. I've never read manga before, but I am open to learning new things, and I wanted to see what it was about manga that was appealing and why maybe it might be more appealing to its fans than, say, comic books are, Western comic books are. And I think I found some things. It's not just necessarily the art itself, but it's how the art is made and how the creators work with it, and how basically the audience kind of dictates what's successful and what's not successful. To a lesser extent, the audience dictates that in Western comics, like with the big two, or even big three if you want to include Image. Western audiences kind of dictate that in the fact that, if something doesn't work well, they just don't buy it. But, there's kind of a different attitude and a different mechanism by which things succeed or fail in manga. If you're unfamiliar, there's a major publication called Weekly Shonen Jump, when shonen is like a kind of manga that's targeted at young boys to teenage boys and so on and so forth, which is what My Hero Academia is targeted to. And it's an anthology weekly magazine. And so the way that it works is that the different manga get shots at coming in there, and then readers vote for what they think are the better stories, and the better stories get moved to the front of the issue from week to week. And if your story sucks, or if it doesn't gain traction, or if it in any way really displeases the audience, what winds up happening is that it gets shoved back to the backside of the magazine and eventually gets dropped. And you don't get that with Western comics. So we typically get a creative team that's assigned to a book, and the book has been around for 50, 60, 70 years sometimes, and you get what you get. And if you don't like it, then that's tough. So you're just going to take what we have to give you, and you're going to be happy about it. And that's kind of the attitude that DC and Marvel have with major properties that have massive worldwide fan bases, like Spider-Man or Batman or Superman. And so you'll hear people complaining about someone's run on a given book, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that people don't really see the entertainment value in certain things that people like to do. So with, some people didn't like Tom King, some people don't like Dan Slott, and if you don't like it, it's kind of even more difficult for fans to track it, because of the fact that, these people will get up on social media and they'll start, screaming at people about politics and whatnot. It really takes a lot of the fun out of it, just enjoying your hobby and enjoying the comics that you want to read, when these people just can't seem to control themselves. They've got a lot of time on their hands. Manga artists don't really seem to have a lot of time on their hands. If you look at how this is done, these are 30 to 50 pages. These are a chapter a week that are put out, and the way that it's produced is you have the manga artist, the guy that's writing it or the girl that's writing it, and maybe even drawing it, and then they'll be in a small studio with a team of assistants, and then they will just crank out 30 to 40 pages a week. That's staggering. That kind of workload is just crazy. The number one selling manga is One Piece. It's the all-time best-selling manga ever. And it's been going since, I think, 97, if I'm not mistaken. And it's got almost 100 volumes now at this point. The guy that writes it, he will get up at 5 a.m. in the morning and then work till 2 a.m. the next morning. He doesn't have time to get on social media and wax lyrical or otherwise about what people think about anything. He just does his job, and he loves to do his job. These are some things that I think can really have a big impact on how people enjoy the product. I think that manga is kind of like a collision of comic books with comic strips. What I wanted to do when I was growing up, I wanted to be a syndicated cartoonist. I wanted to create a comic strip like Calvin and Hobbes. I wanted to get syndicated in newspapers. That's what I wanted to do for a living. That was my dream job. I wanted to grow up to be a syndicated cartoonist, and that is a very difficult thing to do. It's almost as difficult as what manga people have to deal with when they're trying to get picked up for serialization. They'll come up with a one shot, depending on the reception of it, then they'll get serialized, and then once they get serialized, eventually they'll come up with Tankobon collections, which is what this is here, a volume 1, and you can just read the story. It's like an ongoing story. That's, I think, one of the big things. You know, people will say that, well, there's comics, there's politics in manga, and that's true. And as a political scientist, as a trained political scientist, I will tell you that there is a difference between politics where you're yelling at political figures, and there's a difference between politics where you're talking about political theory. What I see in manga is political theory, and honestly, the best literature, they deal with political philosophy and themes that underpin why people believe what they believe. Those type of politics people actually really love because they speak to things that are, timeless human ideals. And I think that that's something that a lot of people misunderstand. They go, oh, well, manga's got politics too, so yeah, and you're like, okay, well, yeah, but, there's a big difference. Anyway, this is, again, My Hero Academia. This is not a review of this. I'm actually going to do a review of it, and I'm going to start just doing reviews of the volumes of the Tankobon. By the way, Tankobon, for those that are not initiated, and forgive me if I'm saying it wrong, I'm pretty sure that's how you say it, though, they are volumes of manga. So you can buy volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so that's how you go buy it. If you're not subscribing to a weekly Shonen Jump, then you're pretty much getting your manga by going to bookstores or online or wherever and just buying volumes of it. So I'm going to start doing reviews of those volumes, much like I am doing reviews of comic books. Again, this is my very first manga I've ever read, so all of the things that I'm talking about are found here so far. I read One Punch Man Volume 1, and I'm looking at some other ones too, and I've flipped through some, and I see some consistent visual shorthand. And the reason why is because there's a premium on space, and what they want to do is get their story across as visually efficient as possible. And one of the things that stood out to me here is things like right here, where you see you've got a lot of the pages have white backgrounds here. I love how they do flashbacks, and I'm not entirely certain if this is something that goes on in all manga, but in My Hero Academia, a lot of times when they're doing a flashback, what they're going to do is you're going to see like the white background, that's for the present time, and then they'll go to a flashback, and the flashback is all in black bars. It's got an all black background here, and it's a way of telling you, without explicitly screaming at you, that hey, this is a flashback, and that in this way they don't have to do weird special filters. Like if you read a lot of Western comics, you'll get like a different kind of color grade, or like they threw up an Instagram filter on the page, and you say, oh well, this is in the past because it looks like it's old film or something like this. Here they do it with black backgrounds, so that's really impressive. Another thing that manga, and specifically My Hero Academia, when they need to get something across, they don't worry about the detail. They worry about the speed and the dynamism of an image. So like right here, right, you got basically All Might, and he is rescuing Midoriya, or I believe that's how you pronounce his name. I'm just going to say Deku, because that's his nickname from his antagonist. I'll just say Deku here. He's being rescued from a basically a slime monster, and look at this, right? There is no background detail anywhere. You've got onomatopoeias, and you've got the goo monster, you've got our protagonist being rescued, and you've got our hero, and you have speed lines. Here you've got the goo monster, and no background, no nothing, just shock, wave, and then you've got our protagonist Deku or Midoriya. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct, but that's how you spell it. Anyway, no background, just the image of his face. The same thing with All Might. And in a lot of Western comics, you will see guys, and you will see artists. They just go so far overboard in trying to cram that entire page full of detail. And people don't really pay attention to that because they're just trying to read it and read the story and go along. And I don't know of many people who just sit there and stare at a page and look at all the detail for it, because you're busy trying to watch a story. And in manga, they don't care about that. They don't care about it for two reasons. One, they don't have time to care about it, and two, it doesn't move the story along. Everything here is visual economy. Everything here that is on this page is meant to drive the story forward, and that's it. And I love that about manga, and it's something that is gonna keep me coming back for more. And every page it's just like bam, 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 bam. It's go, go, go time. There's nothing there to navel gaze over. There's nothing there. It's like, here's a story, here's what we're doing, here's where we're going, this pushes it forward. And I think if you had manga artists editing major comic book publishers in the United States, you'd have way more appealing comic books, to be perfectly honest with you. Not everything needs to be Watchmen. It's ridiculous the way that the kind of navel gazing that goes on. I was reading the current Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man run. Don't get me wrong here. I mean, I love Nick Spencer. I mean, I do, and I love his work on Spider-Man so far. But when we're talking about, like, I was just reading through Sin's Rising, and when we're just talking about, well, should I save Norman Osborn? Should I not save Norman Osborn? Well, if I save him, maybe he's not going to kill people, but if I kill him, does that make me bad? Blah, 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 blah. Screw it. Do what's right. Fix the problem. And so we'll have page after page after page after page after page of Peter Parker just, I don't know if I should really, stop Sin Eater from getting rid of Norman Osborn, because, that's just not the way things are done. And then meanwhile you've got Spider-Gwen and Miles Morales and, Madam Web all talking about, we should stop Peter, we shouldn't stop Peter, Peter needs to make the decision. I mean, it's like, oh my God, make it stop. Please, make all of it stop. Not so with things like My Hero Academia or One Punch Man. So far I've read, I mean, yes, it's a small sample size, but these are some of the most popular manga ever made, and they get to the point, and that's what matters, I think. And that's one of the things I think that Western comics could certainly learn from. So another point I want to talk about is, I love how we're at a premium for space, and we're at a premium for getting the message across. And something that I really love about this particular panel here is, you've got All Might over here. He's going through a door, and then you hear, and then you see the word slam here. Okay, so we're going in, and can I get this slide over? There we go. All right, so he says it's not wrong to dream, and he's going through a door, and then we cut back to Midoriya, and you see the slam, and however you need to be a realistic kid. Okay, and it's perfect. We don't need. We know that he has slammed the door on not only the door right here, but All Might slammed the door on Midoriya's dreams. So I mean, it's I can't tell you how genius this is to do this. I mean, we're talking about something physically here. We're talking about something intangible here, and he's slamming the door literally and figuratively on Midoriya. And this is something that you just don't really see a lot in Western comics, and it's brilliant. And I wish we could see more things like this, more inventiveness, but we just don't. So another thing that I really like is the furry balloons. I call them furry balloons because they got these little speed lines. They look like fur, and they appear in different manga, and they always, without fail, are basically someone's memory. So here Midoriya is thinking about what someone said, and he's remembering what they said, and this is how we see this. So we don't have a lot of room to work with. We don't have a lot of art that we can put here. But if we want to have someone thinking about what someone else said, in Western comics, you'll get them in boxes with different color-coded frames to indicate someone else is speaking. Here, we don't need that. We know what they said. We know who spoke it because we just read it, 3 or 4 pages back, and this indicates that this is what's happening. Even as a third year, he still can't face reality. This is his antagonist. You need to be realistic. Actually, you'd be reading this like, you need to be realistic. Even as a third year, he still can't face reality. And then it's time to start thinking. seriously about your futures. And that was the instructor talking about how they need to kind of move on beyond trying to be heroes, because not everyone can be a hero. And that's kind of the crux of the origin story here of Midoriya through My Hero Academia. Another thing that I love is, again, we don't have room here. We have dialogue that someone else is saying, and we have our character. We want our character to react to what they're saying. And so what we have here is we have just the word of dialogue, and then we have the word balloon with an inverted balloon tail. And that's pointing to this person that's off panel talking. That's brilliant. I've never seen that before. In all my years of drawing comic strips, reading comic strips, drawing web comics, reading comic books, learning how they're constructed and put together in preparation for my graphic novel that I'm working on right now, I've never seen this. And that's phenomenal. That is such a brilliant, efficient solution for that problem. Most people would try to draw someone in the background here and then put Midoriya up here and put like a little word balloon here and a little tail down there and all that stuff. But we don't need that here. This gets the same thing across. And if you're really worried about who the person is that's speaking this, well, we've got that person here in this other frame. And so we're kind of like, using this frame twice. And if you really need it, you've got Midoriya here, and you've got the character that's actually saying in a separate panel. So it's actually pointing to that character in a different panel. It's brilliant. It's fantastic. So, these are just kind of visual style cues that I think Western comics can learn from. So, two things to kind of summarize. Economy of art and storytelling and sequential art is really at streamlined to a T. I mean, it is really on point with manga, and I really appreciate that. And that's something that, when you're reading a comic book, say you pick up a standard comic book these days, you compare it to a manga. The comic book is, what is it, 10 by 8, something like that. 10 by 7 basically is pretty much what it is, right? I'm pretty sure that's it. 10 by, yeah. There's so much more room to work with, but in small little tankobon volumes, there's not as much room to work with, and they get it across so much more efficiently, and they have to be much more disciplined. And so we see better action, we see better dialogue, we see better structure, and everything is made towards serving the purpose of the story. And that's what's amazing. If you look at, this is Spider-Man number 49, or 850 if you want to go by Legacy. This is one of the supplemental stories toward the back of the book, where Spider-Man is fighting Starling here. And, we've got one gigantic background here with all this detail that doesn't really matter, right? And then we're using it for basically 2 frames. But Spider-Man's here, then Spider-Man's here. We don't know how Spider-Man got from here to here, but all we're trying to do, what we're supposed to do is we're supposed to mentally make this up. And to me, this is like the equivalent of comic book shaky cam. So it's like, it's not showing us how things are going. It's just, look, it's a bunch of pretty pictures. We've taken a couple paper dolls and we've just scattered them across this background photograph. And that's something that you're never going to really see in manga because of the fact that, they don't have the room to screw around with that. So we're going to have an action shot, and we don't have time to do 15 different versions of All Might. Here's All Might, boom. And here he is smacking the crap out of the villain. Boom, we're done. That's what I think from a stylistic point, Western comics can learn from manga. And I'm a fan. And I've already picked up volumes 2 and 3 of My Hero Academia, and I'm going to start reviewing these as well. So I know this is a very, very long video, but I just had a lot to say about manga in general because it's a big topic. And maybe I'll kind of like make smaller videos with more bite-sized examples. But anyway, thanks for watching Comics with Drew, and I'll see you next time.